there are some albums that are so iconic and hold such a strong legacy that we are still talking about them 30 years later, or at least I am. Certainly Nevermind and Siamese Dream would fall into that category. It's going to be fun to butt them up against each other and see which one will win out. Tune in on this episode talking about records. My name is G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl, a small chain of independent record shops in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you're local, you can obviously shop with us at our physical locations. If you are in the U.S., you can order with us online at NTX Vinyl anytime for any new releases, pre-orders, things like that. And of course, would love it if you subscribe to our channel here on YouTube and across social media on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Today, we are here to talk about Nevermind and Siamese Dreams. Two albums that have aged very well. It's been 30 years. And both very iconic. Just the album covers themselves, honestly. I want to talk through the production of these albums, the songwriting. I want to compare the not only the singles, but the deep tracks, talk about the instrumentation, the legacy. So there's a lot to unpack here. I do post on social media every now and then where I'll just put up pictures of an album and say, which one you got, right? And this battle in particular always stirs up quite a conversation, which is understandable because Nevermind, especially as a record, is overwhelming. I mean, the importance of it historically cannot really be overstated, because it was a movement. It was a cultural phenomenon in a lot of ways, in similar ways to when the Beatles kicked off their career. But if I'm going to talk about Nevermind and I'm going to talk about Siamese Dream, I think you have to have a little context with the timeline. So first of all, you've got to look at their debuts, right? And there's a lot of parallels between these two albums, which I'll go through. So first of all, Bleach comes out, Nirvana's debut record, 1989, June of 89. It's 2 years later, 2 full years later, that Gish comes out, which is Smashing Pumpkins' debut. So in that time period, Bleach was a sub-pop release, very much an indie, underground punk release in a lot of ways. And the band started to get their feet, but this is pre-Dave Grohl joining, of course. So early lineups where they were going through a few different drummers, and they were starting to again get some momentum, obviously in the Pacific Northwest, but mainly overseas. But this album didn't even chart, so it did not even chart. Gish comes out 2 years later, which was produced by Butch Vig. I'm going to get into production. Jack Endino, Seattle, very well-renowned producer, produced Bleach, but Butch Vig gets his hands on Smashing Pumpkins and Gish, and it comes out in 91. And Gish was a much bigger album initially. It charted within the top 200 of the Billboard 200. So at least it was on the charts. Again, still a very underground record. But if I think back to that time, I remember seeing much more presence of Gish in 91 than Bleach. For one, Bleach had already been out a little 2 years, so it wasn't a new album. But like I remember seeing like Siva, the main single off of Gish on MTV, the video and stuff like that. So Smashing Pumpkins had more momentum, I think, with their first record. But the thing is, Nevermind hits not too long after Gish, about 6 months later. And you got to keep in mind, the reason why it's important is because Butch Vig produced Gish, then he changes gears and goes and produces Nevermind, then switches back to Siamese Dream. So there was a lot of rub there. If you go, the best thing to watch on this, Rick Beato, who's huge here on YouTube. You should know that name. If you don't, look him up. But he's done interviews recently in the past few months with Billy Corgan and talked about this period and talked about how important that timeline was. He's also done interviews with Chris Novoselic about this as well. So go search those videos out, because that's the best information you're going to find on these records, right? But the fact that the same producer bounced back and forth between the two bands is very, very interesting, and it's what makes this conversation interesting to me, especially as you get into the production conversation. Billy Corgan goes on to say in that interview that, you know, he was obviously rubbed a little bit, and in his opinion, a lot of the guitar tones and the production style, especially the overdubbing of guitars, which Butch did on Nevermind, was kind of coming out of Gish, right? And then they even doubled down on it on Siamese Dream, where there are so many guitar tracks on Siamese Dream, it's unfathomable. I'm talking, and I think you can listen to or read interviews with Corgan where he said some of their guitar tracks were, you know, 10, 20 different guitars piled on top of each other to make one track, right? Butch talks about, there's lots of interviews with Butch, of course, about Nevermind, specifically about the making of Nevermind, where he goes on to say he pretty much had to convince Kurt to overdub anything, guitars, vocals, anything, again, because they were coming out of a punk rock world, Bleach, and you know, that wasn't the way they did things, but this was going to be their major label debut, so Butch was like, we've got to fatten this up and give it a big sound. And then honestly, the songs are so much bigger than they were on Bleach that it makes sense that that would be the case. So production wise, if I had to say which one's better, I mean, I'm splitting hairs, first of all, with both these. They're both phenomenal albums. The production is so similar in a lot of ways, a lot more layering going on with Siamese Dream, a lot more textures. Nevermind's more straightforward, still has the heaviness, still has the punch. Obviously, you got Dave Grohl on drums, you got Jimmy Chamberlain on drums, so you're going to have incredible rhythm and backing for all those guitars. So I think you're splitting hairs on production. I think, you know, Butch has gone on to produce a lot of great records, but no more than these. You know, like, these are the ones he's known for, and rightfully so. That's why I'm here talking about them. So love the production on both these records, and I think they both stand up so well. Let's talk about songwriting, though. Songwriting's tough, because songwriting is very subjective. You know, your favorite song might be a song I hate, and vice versa. But if you go down the list, the first thing that's interesting is the singles comparison. So both albums kick off with the big singles. Obviously, Smells Like Teen Spirit, and then you've got Cherub Rock. Both really, really strong lead-off tracks, both really, really strong singles. One of them changed the world. One of them was a big rock single. I mean, that's just the reality of it, right? When Smells Like Teen Spirit drops, it changed the world. It changed everything. I was a kid. I was, you know, 12, 13 years old, and it opened my eyes to music in a way that wasn't possible before. You know, I knew classic rock. I knew Led Zeppelin. I knew the Beatles. I was starting to get into a lot of that stuff, Pink Floyd. So I knew there was potential. But when something net new comes along from, you know, guys not that much older than you, that look just like you, you know, the story's been told a million times, but it changes everything, because you can then imagine yourself up there, that it's attainable, and you're in the audience and they look just like you, and you become one with it, right? And so that's what Nevermind did. Siamese Dream was, again, it comes out 2 full years after Nevermind, because it took a while to write it and record it, especially. It was a labor, says Corgan, to record the album. They're neck and neck songwriting wise too. I mean, they both had a lot of singles, because after you get past the lead single, Smells Like Teen Spirit, you had In Bloom, Come As You Are, and I think Drain You as a single as well. Cherub Rock was the lead-off single, but you also had Today, Rocket, and Disarm. I mean, they're all huge, amazing songs. That's just the reality of it, front to back. And then if you get into the deep cuts, so if you're gonna ask me my favorite songs off Nevermind, I'm gonna tell you Drain You. I'm sorry, I'm gonna tell you Breed. Breed is my favorite track off Nevermind. Drain You is probably my second one. Territorial Pissings, Stay Away. Again, I love the singles, but I love the deep tracks because you just don't hear them as much. Same on Siamese Dream. Mayonnaise, Hummer, Silverfuck. I do love Quiet as well. They're just so Geek USA. I didn't get a chance to see Nirvana. I was stupid. I didn't see them. I did see Smashing Pumpkins on this tour. Phenomenal. Great. And I've seen them several times since then. But yeah, I think for me, if you're going to pick the bigger singles, Nevermind's going to win out. If you're going to pick better deep tracks, I would probably go with Siamese Dream. But that's, again, splitting hairs on all of this. Instrumentation-wise, vocals, a lot of people don't like Billy's style of vocals in general. Kurt's more of a punk rock aesthetic, but lyrically and vocally, I think you'd probably go with Nevermind, honestly. It's hard. It's just such an iconic album. It's hard to discredit it in any way. Full disclosure, it's not even my favorite Nirvana record. I would choose In Utero, to be honest with you. But yeah, both really good there as well. As far as drums, oh my God, drums? I would take Nevermind too, but Jimmy Chamberlin, come on, it's unbelievable. Guitars are heavy on both, succinct. Guitars, I would actually take Siamese Dream. You can just tell that the amount of effort and meticulous overdubbing that went in to make it sound so tight and huge. And then Legacy, obviously, how many people you see walking around these days with Nirvana shirts versus Smashing Pumpkins shirts? I mean, it's 99-1. The Legacy is again, you can't really overstate it enough with Nevermind. Siamese Dream sold, I think 6 million copies to date. Nevermind sold like 30 million, so that's obviously no comparison, but I don't really care about sales. To me, they're two of the most iconic albums of the last 30 years. They really are, and they're great listens through and through. I will say this, when I put up the posts on social media, which I've done it a couple times, and there's usually a sentiment that from a lot of people that say, when I was younger, Nevermind would have been my pick, but now that I'm older, Siamese Dream is my pick. I don't know if I fall in line with that. To me, it's more like choosing your favorite kid. Like, it's impossible. Or it's like, well, whichever one I'm listening to at the time, that's my favorite. Because if I'm cranking Nevermind, then I'm like, oh my God, it's unbelievable. But then if I'm cranking Siamese Dream, I'm like, this is the one. This is the best album ever. It's really, really hard. I could do it. I could throw in other albums and compare similar albums from the time period and compare with these. If I wanted to throw in like Alice in Chains' Dirt or Super Unknown from Soundgarden, or obviously Pearl Jam Tenor Verses or something like that, like you could do an even broader comparison. But when I just boil it down to these two, if I had to choose currently which album I was going to listen to for the rest of my life, and I couldn't listen to the other one, I could only listen to one, I'd choose Siamese Dream. There you go. That's me. I made my pick. Sticking to it. I'd love to hear your pick. If you had to pick one of those two albums to listen to and you couldn't listen to the other one, that's the most important part. What would you go with? Let me know in the comments. I plan on doing more of these types of videos because I love comparing albums that have a lot of overlap and a lot of parallels with them. And these two definitely do. And thought it was a good way to kind of kick off this Versus series, which I'm going to call it. So thanks as always. I love talking about this stuff, especially these types of albums. My name is GI. This has been Talking About Records, and we'll see you again next time.